Perhaps you've asked yourself at some point, why me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve it? Those kinds of questions stay with us in the most intense moments of life, and they are a doorway to one of the most ancient, universal, and at the same time, most misunderstood spiritual laws, karma. In this video, we're going to take a deep journey together. What karma really is, how it has been explained by ancient traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism, Hermetic teachings of the West, and the vision of great modern teachers like Paramahansa Yogananda, Osho, and Rudolf Steiner. But above all, we're going to focus on something very important, what you can do here and now to stop generating negative karma and start creating positive karma. Because understanding karma isn't a theoretical exercise. It's a tool to transform your life, to take back your power, and to stop feeling like you are at the mercy of a capricious destiny. Prepare yourself to look at your life from a different perspective. And perhaps by the end of this video, you may understand that everything you have lived until today has a purpose. Karma in Hinduism. In Hinduism, karma is one of the pillars of the spiritual vision of life. The word karma in Sanskrit literally means action or act. In the oldest texts, such as the Vedas and the Upanishads, this word evolved to express a much broader idea: the ethical law of cause and effect that shapes the destiny of each soul, Jivadaman. Every soul that is reborn carries with it a bundle of causes created in past lives, and those causes largely determine the circumstances into which it incarnates: the family, the environment, health, character, and even the lessons it will have to face. As Yogananda said, the habits you cultivated in past lives have created your physical, mental, and emotional form in this life. The very fact that you are a man or a woman was determined by tendencies you yourself chose in previous lives. In this doctrine, there are no accidents. Every experience you live is connected to seeds you yourself planted before. The Hindu teaching establishes that the embodied soul is trapped in the cycle of samsara, birth, death, and rebirth, as long as karmic effects remain to be balanced. It is not a punishment. It is a natural and educational process. The famous maxim of the Katha Upanishad in the Bhagavad Gita summarizes it: as one sows, so shall one reap. Every good action will inevitably produce a good result for the one who performed it. Every harmful action will return as equivalent suffering, but this return is not always immediate. Sometimes it may take entire lifetimes for a cause to ripen and manifest. That's why we sometimes see people doing harm and yet prospering. They may be enjoying the fruits of good actions from the past, while the consequences of their present actions are still pending for the future. Imagine life as a vast field. Every thought, word, and action is a seed. Some seeds sprout quickly, others lie dormant for years, even entire lifetimes. But sooner or later, every seed will bear fruit. Hinduism distinguishes 3 types of karma. Sanchita karma. All the accumulated karma from previous lives. It's like a vast storehouse, a reserve of pending causes that the soul carries. Prarabdha karma, the portion of that accumulated karma that is ripening in the present life. This determines the predestined circumstances you were born with, your family environment, your talents, your limitations, and even the inevitable trials you will have to go through. As Yogananda said, Prarabdha is the hand of cards you were dealt. Krimiyana is how you play them, and Sanchita is the full deck still waiting its turn. According to this view, part of our current destiny, prarabdha, is inevitable in the sense that it is already in motion and must unfold. A classic example, even an enlightened sage may suffer an illness or face a difficulty in his final life because of prarabdha karma, even if he is no longer personally creating new karma. So what to do then? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, "You have a right to action, but not to the fruits of action. Perform your duty without attachment to the result." Krishna teaches Arjuna that he must act according to his dharma, his right duty, without attachment to the result. This discipline of acting without selfishness or expectation is the heart of karma yoga, to act rightly but detached from the outcome, so as not to keep creating bondage. Another central path is devotion to the divine, bhakti. Various theistic schools hold that divine grace can lessen or even dissolve negative karma. The Shvatashvachara Upanishad says that by dedicating all actions to Ishvara, God, one escapes the law of karma. Adi Shankaracharya put it this way: if we offer all our actions to God, we will not be subject to karma. That is why in the Hindu tradition there are abundant rituals, pilgrimages, devotional practices, and acts of charity conceived to purify the heart and burn karmic seeds before they sprout. The ultimate goal is to reach moksha, liberation, the state in which the soul completely transcends the law of cause and effect and no longer returns to birth. In summary, Hinduism presents karma as a just and educational law. Each being is born with certain self-imposed inclinations and challenges, but in every moment forges their future with present decisions. There is no fixed and immutable destiny. Yogananda summarizes it this way: there is no such thing as blind fate. You forge your own destiny. Do not blame God or others for your problems. You created the cause, and you can change it. The good news is that the same free will that led you to plant negative causes now allows you to create new causes that illuminate your path. Karma in Buddhism. Buddhism inherits the notion of karma from Hinduism, but reformulates it with a very particular focus. For the Buddha, what matters most is not the external action itself, but the intention that gives rise to it. And the Buddha's own words, monks, I say that intention is karma. This means that not every action generates karma. If you act without intention, mechanically or by accident, that action leaves no karmic trace. Karma arises when there is conscious will and intention. This marks a huge difference from other, more rigid conceptions. What truly matters is not only what you do, but the place from which you do it. In Buddhism, actions driven by compassion, generosity, and wisdom plant seeds that ripen into well-being. In contrast, those born from greed, hatred, or ignorance plant seeds that ripen into suffering. But here there's a very interesting point. Not everything that happens to you is your karma. The Buddha was very clear about this. He warned his disciples that attributing everything to karmic causes is a mistake. Other laws and conditions also operate in life. Physical and biological laws, illness, aging, social and economic laws, wars, famines, structural injustices. Karma is one of the factors that condition experience, but it is not the only one. This vision avoids falling into simplistic explanations such as, if you suffer, it's because you deserve it. In Buddhism, karma functions within the cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Every intentional action leaves an imprint that influences the rebirth of the mental stream. A virtuous life opens the door to more favorable rebirths. A life driven by harm and ignorance leads to realms of suffering. But here there's a very interesting point. Unlike Hinduism, Buddhism denies the existence of an eternal soul that transmigrates from life to life. There is no eternal self that travels. What is reborn is a causal flow of conditioned consciousness.
The metaphor most used by the Buddha is that of a flame lighting another candle. It is not the same flame, but neither is it completely different. There is continuity of cause and effect without the need for a fixed soul. In Mahayana schools, this continuity is explained with the idea of alaya vijnana, the storehouse consciousness. In it, karmic seeds are stored, which can remain dormant for a long time. When the right conditions arise, those seeds sprout as experiences in the present life or in future lives. For example, a recurring tendency such as anger may come from a seed planted long before. As long as the seed is not transformed, it will continue to bear similar fruit. The Buddha taught a clear path to stop planting seeds of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. This path has 8 interconnected aspects: right understanding and intention, right speech, action, and livelihood, right effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Each aspect acts as an antidote to the causes of suffering: greed, hatred, and ignorance. Practicing the path purifies the mind and reduces the creation of new negative karma. In Buddhism, the end of karma does not come through an external forgiveness, but when the production of causes ceases. That happens in nirvana, when pending karmas are exhausted and no new karma is generated. The cycle of rebirths comes to an end. That is why Buddhism insists on something profoundly practical. You don't have to wait for another life to be free from suffering. Transformation begins here and now. Every thought, every word, every conscious action has the power to shape not only the future, but also the quality of the present. There is a profoundly liberating aspect in the Buddhist view: spiritual equality. For the Buddha, social barriers such as birth or caste do not determine a person's spiritual worth. He states it clearly in the Vasala Sutta. It is not by birth that one is noble or outcast, but by one's actions. Every individual, regardless of origin, can ennoble themselves through virtuous acts, just as they can degrade themselves through harmful acts. The moral law of cause and effect is impartial. Everyone is subject to it, and everyone has the ability to be free. In summary, for Buddhism, karma is an educational law. Our intentions create habits and conditions that bind us to the cycle of existence until we learn the necessary lessons. But karma is not an escapable fate. The mind is like a river. If you change the course now, the water that flows in the future will follow a new direction. In this way, by cultivating wholesome intentions, compassion, and wisdom, you can transform the karma that comes. The emphasis is on present responsibility. As the Dhammapada says, what we are is the result of what we have thought. With a pure mind, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. In this sense, karma becomes a tool of liberation accessible to all. There are no privileges of caste, religion, or position. We are all subject to the same moral law of cause and effect, and we can all be free by diligently applying the teachings that purify the heart.
The law of cause and effect in Hermeticism. Hermeticism is a philosophical and spiritual tradition that traces back to the legendary figure of Hermes Trismegistus, a sage said to have lived in ancient Egypt, identified both with the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes. His teachings, transmitted through texts such as the Emerald Tablet and the Corpus Hermeticum, deeply influenced philosophy, alchemy, and the esoteric currents of the West. In more recent times, one of the best-known compilations of these teachings is the Kybalion, published in 1908 by the Three Initiates. There, 7 fundamental principles are summarized, and the 6th of them is the law of cause and effect. The principle states, every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. This means that nothing happens by chance. What we call luck or fortune are causes invisible to us, but very real on another plane. Hermeticism teaches that this law operates on every level: physical, mental, and spiritual. Every thought, every emotion, every word, and every action generates a causal wave that expands and, sooner or later, returns. A classic metaphor to understand this is the boomerang. Everything you throw into the world will come back to you. If you throw hatred, hatred will return. If you throw kindness, kindness will return. Not always by the same path, not always from the same person, but the energy you emitted will inevitably come back. That is why Hermeticism shares with the East the ethical teaching of personal responsibility. Everything we do has consequences, and ignorance of the law does not exempt us from its effects. The Hermetic adept is aware that by emitting negativity, hatred, deceit, harm, they're ultimately harming themselves because that energy will return in equal measure. In the same way, by emitting positivity, love, help, truth, they are investing in their own future benefit. Hermetic writings say, if you steal, you will be stolen from. If you deceive, you will be deceived. If you act with hatred, hatred will return to you. Likewise, if you help, you will be helped. If you love, you will receive love. The law is impartial and exact. It neither rewards nor punishes. It simply returns to each one what they have emitted. Traditional Hermeticism, unlike Buddhism, does accept the notion of an enduring soul and probably of reincarnation in harmony with Western occult currents. That is why many esoteric authors of the 20th century, influenced by Theosophy or Rosicrucianism, interpreted the law of cause and effect as equivalent to the Eastern karmic law. Hermeticism also teaches that a conscious individual can partially transcend the chain of cause and effect. Hermetic masters say that the initiate rises to a higher plane from which they become more cause than effect. This means that instead of reacting passively to circumstances, they begin to consciously generate new causes aligned with their will and with the law. For most people, however, the law continues to operate in a strict way. That is why the practical advice is clear. Always sow the best. Every elevated thought, every word of encouragement, every benevolent action is a cause that will produce a positive effect. And in the same way, every destructive impulse contained or transformed is a karmic chain that is interrupted before it forms. Hermeticism reminds us that the universe is not chaos. It is a perfect order where justice is woven into the very structure of reality. Understanding this invites us to live more consciously, to stop seeing ourselves as victims of external circumstances, and to assume us as active participants in the law, sowing causes that will lift us higher. Paramahansa Yogananda's vision of karma. Paramahansa Yogananda lived between 1893 and 1952. He was one of the great emissaries of Indian spirituality in the West. Born in Gorakhpur, India, his mission was to bring yoga and Vedantic philosophy to the Western world. In 1920, he founded the Self-Realization Fellowship in the United States, and in 1946, he published his celebrated Autobiography of a Yogi, a work that introduced millions of people to meditation, yoga, and the universal spiritual laws, including karma. For Yogananda, karma is not a punishment imposed by a severe deity, but the expression of a divine law of justice that operates with mathematical precision. He said, "As one sows, so shall one inevitably reap." God does not punish us. He gives us the harvest we ourselves have planted. Every action you perform, good or bad, generates a vibration in consciousness. That vibration is recorded as a seed and will sooner or later germinate. The actions of this life leave impressions in the subconscious. Those of past lives are recorded more deeply in what Yogananda called the causal plane of the soul. These impressions don't disappear. They become tendencies, habits, and inclinations that shape your character, your destiny, and even the external conditions of your life. That is why, according to Yogananda, what you are today is no accident. It is the result of what you have sown over many lifetimes. Even aspects like your health, talents, or personal challenges have roots in your past actions. This is not posed as a condemnation, but as the only coherent explanation for the apparent inequality in the world, as there would be no justice if God had arbitrarily made us as we are. Each person has made themselves what they are. Yogananda insisted that there is a fundamental freedom in this teaching. If you created the causes that brought you here, then you can also create new causes that take you somewhere else. Before you act, you are free. But once you act, you are bound to the effect of that action, whether you want it or not. That is the law of karma. That is why he said, "You and you alone are responsible for yourself. Do not blame God or others if you suffer. You created the cause in the past, and now you must make the effort to undo it." This statement changes the attitude toward life. If you created the causes that brought you here, then you can also create new causes that take you elsewhere. Free will does not disappear. On the contrary, it is your tool to redirect your course. Even the hardest trials of your life, a disease, a failure, a loss, may have their roots in decisions made long ago, whose effects remain latent until the right moment to manifest. But here is the good news. For Yogananda, no karma is irrevocable. Karmic seeds can be transformed before they sprout. How? Through deep meditation, sincere devotion, and right action. In particular, Yogananda taught the technique of Kriya Yoga as a method to accelerate spiritual evolution and burn accumulated karma in the fire of consciousness. In his words, Kriya Yoga is like a sacred fire that consumes the seeds of karma before they can germinate. In deep communion with God, the vibration of superconsciousness is so intense that it can dissolve karma that would otherwise take lifetimes to resolve. He also emphasized that when you live in communion with the divine, your actions cease to generate bondage. An ordinary person is bound by millions of invisible threads created by their past habits and desires. But when someone reaches a high spiritual state, their actions leave no trace. When a true yogi acts, karmically, it is like writing on water. No mark remains. This connects with the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Action done without attachment does not generate binding karma. Yogananda also spoke of collective karma. Just as each individual reaps what he sows, humanity as a whole also generates karma that can manifest in events that affect everyone. Wars, crises, epidemics, natural disasters.
In these cases, even those who did not participate directly in the causes can be touched by the effects simply by being within the vibratory field of that collective karma. In the face of this, Yogananda insisted, karma is not a prison without escape. God has given us tools, meditation, devotion, the guidance of spiritual masters to free ourselves. The message is deeply empowering. There is no one else to blame for your destiny, but there is also no one who can prevent you from transforming it. You have the power to create new causes, assisted by divine grace if you sincerely invoke it.
Osho's perspective on karma. Osho, also known as Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, lived between 1931 and 1990. He was an Indian spiritual master who revolutionized the way many in the West understood Eastern ideas. His approach to karma is provocative and direct. He acknowledges the law of cause and effect, but questions the rigidity with which it has traditionally been interpreted. For Osho, karma is not a mechanical law that punishes or rewards people automatically, but an educational mechanism that operates here and now. He said, the so-called law of karma is not a scientific law, it is a way of describing how life gives back what you put into it. You don't have to wait until the next life. What you do today creates your heaven or your hell immediately. This does not mean he denied the consequences of actions. Osho accepted that every action inevitably generates an effect, but he insisted that it is not necessary to think in terms of future lives for that effect to appear. Action and result are part of the same process, which begins here and now. He gave simple, everyday examples. If you act with anger, in that very instant, your body secretes poison, your mind is disturbed, and your peace is destroyed. If you act with love, you immediately feel an expansion, a lightness that is already the reward. In this view, karma operates immediately with no need to wait for the future or another life to experience its consequences. Osho also made a very important distinction. Karma only affects the unconscious person. If we act on autopilot, repeating mechanical patterns and reactions, then your action leaves an imprint that binds you. This is karma, unconscious action that creates chains. But when we act fully conscious, present, without mechanical drag, the action ends in itself and does not generate bondage. In Osho's words, if you do something consciously, fully aware, no karma is created. Total action lived in awareness ends right there, like a drop of dew evaporating in the sun. He used the metaphor of the unpredictable man. The awakened person does not respond with the automatic reflexes others expect. To illustrate this point, Osho often used stories and parables. One of the most cited is the Buddhist reaction to insults. On one occasion, a group of villagers harshly insulted the Buddha. He remained silent, showing no anger. Someone asked him why he didn't respond, and the Buddha said, "If someone offered you food and you do not accept it, the food remains with the one who brought it. In the same way, I do not accept their insults." Osho used this example to explain that awareness breaks the cycle of action and reaction. If we react automatically to stimuli, we are trapped in the karmic chain. If we respond from mindfulness, the chain stops.
Another key teaching of Osho is that karma is not a condemnation, but a tool for awakening. Karma persists as long as we live unconsciously, repeating patterns and reinforcing chains. It ceases to exist the moment we awaken. That is why, rather than worrying about accumulating good karma for future lives, Osho proposed living in a state of radical attention and presence now. He said, "Don't worry about past lives or future lives. All your energy must be in this moment. This moment is the doorway. The past is gone. The future does not exist. Only the present is real." In this view, living without creating karma means living consciously, spontaneously, without acting as a mechanical reaction to what happens. This does not imply passivity. It means acting, but from freedom, and not from the repetition of old conditioning. In practical terms, he would ask, what can you do to free yourself from karma? The answer is be present. Observe your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Break the automatic chain of action and reaction. Act from awareness, not from habit. In summary, for Osho, karma is not a threat chasing us from the past, but a mirror, showing us moment by moment from what level of consciousness we are living. If we are awake, karma no longer binds us. If we are asleep, we keep weaving the net that keeps us trapped.
His message is simple and radical. Do not live carrying the guilt of the past or waiting for the reward of the future. Live awake now, because each conscious moment free you from the karmic chain.
Rudolf Steiner's vision of karma. Rudolf Steiner, who lived between 1861 and 1925, was an Austrian philosopher, educator, and esotericist, founder of Anthroposophy. Initially trained as a philosopher and scientist, Steiner became involved with the Theosophical Society, but later developed his own spiritual stream. His thought ranged from education. He created the Waldorf pedagogical system, to medicine, biodynamic agriculture, and, centrally, the understanding of karma and reincarnation from a Christian and Western perspective. For Steiner, karma is not merely a mechanism of individual compensation, but a cosmic pedagogical law that guides the moral and spiritual development of souls. In his vision, karma operates on several levels: individual, family, group, national, and even humanity as a whole. This means there is personal karma, the result of our own actions, but also collective karma, which can manifest in events that affect entire communities: wars, crises, social changes, catastrophes. These events would be in part the manifestation of collective karmic processes accumulated over time. Steiner noted that karma does not always manifest immediately. Some actions have rapid consequences, but others require complex conditions that may take entire lifetimes to gather. A lesson not learned may repeat itself in different incarnations until the soul fully integrates it. What is most distinctive about Steiner is his way of understanding karmic difficulties. He did not see them as punishments to be endured, but as opportunities to grow. An illness, a loss, a limitation. These can be experiences chosen by the soul before incarnating in order to develop qualities it could not acquire otherwise: patience, compassion, humility, inner strength. Steiner gave very illustrative examples.
Imagine a person who in a past life used deceit as a means to gain advantages. Upon dying in the spiritual plane, they experience the impact their lies had on others. That experience is recorded as a tendency that in the next incarnation may manifest as a difficulty in communication or as a limitation that prevents them from manipulating easily. If they still do not correct their inclination, in a third life, that tendency may even reach the physical body. For example, as a health problem that reminds them of the need to live in authenticity. In this sense, karma does not seek to punish, but to educate. Every effect is designed to help the soul find balance and grow toward its highest purpose. Another distinctive teaching of Steiner is the soul participates in the choice of its circumstances before birth. In the time between death and a new birth, the soul reviews its past life. With the help of higher spiritual beings, evaluates what it has learned and decides, from a higher consciousness, the conditions that will allow it to advance. This may include choosing a family and environment or specific trials that, though difficult, represent the best opportunities for its evolution. That is why Steiner said that if we understand karma, our attitude toward life changes completely. We would stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "I myself as a spirit chose this experience. What must I learn from it?" This understanding leads to an attitude of active acceptance, not passive resignation, but a willingness to work with circumstances instead of fighting against them. Steiner also proposed exercises to become aware of one's own karma. One of them consisted in reviewing one's life, recognizing the influence of the key people we have met, family, friends, teachers, even those who have caused us pain. In his vision, these people are not in our life by chance, but through deep bonds, sometimes coming from other incarnations. Even antagonists may be collaborating with us on a higher level, helping us develop aspects we would not otherwise cultivate. Forgiveness in this context takes on a deeper meaning. It not only frees negative emotions, but breaks karmic ties that might otherwise prolong themselves. A unique aspect of Steiner's vision is the figure of Christ as the Lord of Karma. According to Steiner, the incarnation of Christ and his sacrifice had a cosmic impact on human evolution. Christ is said to have assumed part of the collective karma of humanity, allowing destructive forces to be balanced so that spiritual development could continue. In this vision, consciously connecting with the Christ impulse helps transform karma, not because Christ erases the lessons, but because his force of love and forgiveness makes it easier to face them with greater clarity and less suffering. Steiner encouraged actively working with this force, living in love, compassion, dedication, and selfless service to others. These actions not only generate good karma, but transform the quality of the soul, bringing it closer to its highest purpose. In summary, Steiner's teaching invites us to look at karma with maturity and courage. Nothing is random. Every circumstance has a spiritual purpose in which we ourselves participate. Understanding this encourages us to face life with a different attitude, not as victims of an unrelenting destiny, but as conscious co-creators of our evolutionary path.
Toward a conscious life, balancing doctrine and practice.
After exploring these very different visions, there is something they all have in common. Karma is not a punishment. It is an educational law. It is the way life shows us that every thought, word, and action matters, and that everything we sow in one way or another, we will eventually reap. The question is, in practical terms, what does it mean to live consciously in relation to karma? Or, to put it more directly, what can you do to stop accumulating negative karma and start freeing yourself from it? Let's look at some points that appear in all the traditions. Cultivate good intentions and compassion. In daily life, this means acting from love, honesty, and empathy. Buddhism emphasizes this. Intention is the core of karma. Before doing or saying something, observe yourself. Am I acting driven by greed, anger, selfishness? Or am I moved by generosity, understanding, a sense of justice? If you purify the motivation, the karmic result will be beneficial. Even if the action doesn't turn out perfectly, if the intention is pure, you're already sowing in a new direction within yourself. Responsibility over your words and thoughts. Hermeticism reminds us that not only physical actions count, your words and thoughts are also causes. Your words can heal or wound, create trust or sow discord. Speaking with truth and kindness generates harmony that will sooner or later return to you. In the same way, watch the quality of your thoughts. What you repeat in your mind tends to become your state of mind, and your state of mind shapes your actions. Learn from difficulties instead of reacting as a victim. All perspectives agree. Trials are not arbitrary punishments, but opportunities for learning. If you face pain or loss, instead of cursing your luck or blaming others, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Is there something I must transform in myself as a result of this experience? In the karmic view, trials are teachers. Steiner would even say, develop gratitude toward those who hurt you, because perhaps on a deeper level, they are collaborating with your growth. This does not mean tolerating injustice without limits, but learning from each situation without poisoning your heart. Practice meditation and self-discipline. Many masters agree that meditation is a key tool for working with karma. Yogananda said that in the deep stillness of meditation, the light of consciousness can burn karmic seeds before they sprout. Techniques like Kriya Yoga, mindfulness, or any practice that leads you to calm and self-knowledge accelerate liberation. Self-discipline in general, keeping commitments, maintaining healthy habits, mastering destructive impulses, is another way to avoid creating new negative causes. Selfless service and devotion. Doing good for others without expecting a reward is a direct way to generate positive karma and also to dissolve old karma. All traditions say it, generosity cleanses the heart and balances debts. In Hinduism, selfless service or seva and devotion or bhakti are direct paths to soften the weight of past karmas. In Hermeticism, every positive act you sow ensures a positive return, even if it doesn't come from where you expect. Stay present, mindful in every act. Osho insisted on this. Action done with full awareness leaves no karmic trace. When you are totally present, even the simplest things, washing a dish, walking, replying to a message, become a complete act, ending in itself. In contrast, when you react mechanically, dragged by habits and unconscious emotions, you create new chains. Awareness in the present moment is like a sword that cuts the bonds before they form. acceptance and forgiveness. Living karma consciously requires accepting that everything that comes to you is an opportunity for learning. This includes forgiving those who have harmed you. Forgiveness does not mean justifying their actions, but freeing yourself from the chain that binds you to them. Forgiveness cuts the karmic link between victim and aggressor. It is also essential to forgive yourself. Karma does not exist to fill you with guilt, but to teach you. Recognizing your mistakes, learning from them, and letting them go is part of the path. In conclusion, avoiding the creation of negative karma is not a matter of fear or punishment, but of living awake. Every moment is a seed. What you sow now, you will harvest later. If you sow with awareness, the harvest will be good. The good news is that karma is not an eternal sentence. At any moment, you can begin to create different causes. And every new cause begins here and now, in the next thought, in the next word, in the action you decide to take after listening to this video. So I leave you with a question. If every moment is a sowing, what seeds will you plant today? If this topic resonated with you and you want to continue exploring teachings that help you transform your life, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Share this video with someone you feel needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what actions will you sow this week to improve your karma?